Welcome back to Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation with me, Alex Armstrong, this evening. Well, I think Keir Starmer has just delivered the most hollow apology in modern British politics.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
Wait, sorry for what exactly, Prime Minister? Because by your own admission, you knew Mandelson had been associated with Epstein, if not to the true full extent.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffret Epstein?
So clear.
Yes, it did.
Well, Madelson told you he had visited and stayed at Jeffret Epstein's property before he was convicted of sex trafficking underage girls. So there's only a couple of logical conclusions here. Either our forensic former Director of Public Prosecutions didn't consider that was a red flag, or he was completely blindsided by Mandelson. Neither option screams sound judgment for a man who's meant to lead this once great country. Then there's this. Starmer's apparent attempt to twist the narrative like a victim card today after and during the apology.
Prime Minister, why was it that a man who had already twice resigned from government and, crucially, had a publicly known ongoing friendship with a convicted paedophile was appointed by you as ambassador to Washington?
It has been known publicly for some time that they knew each other. That is precisely why those questions were asked. The answers given to those questions were intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew him.
Pay attention to that bit. It was intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein. That is a really strange way of answering that question. Let me put to you what he's saying in layman's terms. The Prime Minister, in that so-called apology, once again did not deny he knew about the Mandelson-Epstein relationship, nor did he deny that he knew Mandelson had stayed with Epstein. He is simply trying to point the blame of his own lack of judgment onto Mandelson. Well, I'm not that stupid, Prime Minister, and neither are our viewers here at GB News. And here's the contrast, frankly, that should make most people absolutely furious. There are thousands of grooming gang victims still waiting for something far more meaningful than a clipped tactical sorry at an event. Years of abuse, years of institutional failure, years of alleged cover-ups, and still no full national reckoning has taken place. Can you believe it? Yet when his own position is under pressure, the Prime Minister finds his contrition instantly. When campaigners demanded a national inquiry into Pakistani grooming gangs, what did he call it?
And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth, and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Yes, the bandwagon of the far right, remember that. So the question now isn't just about Mandelson, is it? It's about credibility, about judgment, about whether Labour MPs are prepared to keep defending, frankly, the indefensible. Because right now, vast swathes of the entire country simply do not believe a word the Prime Minister says. And to borrow a phrase,
You don't need it to be Christmas to know when you're sitting next to a turkey.
And just to conclude, when you're offering an apology to the nation, Prime Minister, I'd advise this.
Put on a proper suit, do up your tie, and sing the national anthem.
As ever, love to know what you think. gbnews.com/yours. I've got my...
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Panel here with me, Aman Bogle and Sebastian Salek. Aman, I'll start with you. What did you make of the Prime Minister's so-called apology today?
Look, I think, Alex, it's very simple. Most people around the country understand that this is the accidental Prime Minister who managed to achieve a sandcastle majority, which is now literally slithering away simply because he's unfit to be Prime Minister. Labour are unfit for Britain. It's quite simple. The ex-head of the MI6 have come out today and said that allegedly the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson before the security clearance was granted. And that sort of begs the question as to what sort of a relationship does Starmer have with Mandelson? And of course, the bigger question here is there a link between Mandelson and his variety of contacts in Washington and the Chagos Islands surrender?
Yeah, there's a lot packed in, isn't there? This is the problem. People are trying to unravel it, Sebastian. The charge here is that the Prime Minister's judgment, at the bare minimum, is so poor that he knew not maybe the full extent of the relationship, but he knew of a relationship with Epstein, between Madelson and Epstein, and he still decided to continue anyway, Sebastian. That is, by any standard, a man with poor judgment, is it not?
Well, everybody knew about the relationship. It was in the public domain. And what I'm surprised to see is that the media and Starmer's political opponents are jumping on him today, rather at the time when Mandelson was first appointed. Now, look, I'm not here to defend Mandelson. He's done an awful thing. He shouldn't have had anything to do with Epstein. And the emails that have come out this week have been completely shocking. But it all lies in that report we're going to get. We're going to get some kind of disclosure, hopefully very, very soon, that will tell us the depth of what Starmer knew when he made that decision. And that will be what all of this hinges on.
But that disclosure, let's be honest, last night it was Labour MPs that decided that it shouldn't be a Labour panel that comes out with that disclosure, but instead the intelligence
It was
committee.
never going to be a Labour panel.
Well, the fact that there is
He was going to be the cabinet secretary.
There is no confidence amongst. There is very little confidence amongst Labour backbenchers in their Prime Minister. Let's be honest.
Do you think he's finished?
I think he's completely cooked, completely finished.
How long do you give it?
Well, I think we'll see something manoeuvring around the May election.
Do you think, Sebastian, the Prime Minister can continue in his job? And I think that just to pose the reasons as to why, so you can challenge the reasoning. First, people will say, well, how can any of his backbench MPs, how can he pass legislation that is difficult and controversial, which we do need to do in Britain? How can he also be trusted on his judgment? Do you think that's a man that can govern?
Yes. Look, I think it all depends on the nature of that report that we get. If it turns out that Starmer has been lying to us all and that he knew way more than he's letting on, then of course he's completely toast. If I had to guess, and I don't really want to have to guess, I think he's probably telling the truth. He's a man who built his political brand on being an honest broker. Remember those days when he stood opposite
Sebastian,
Boris Johnson in the
I'm
dispatch
not even
box?
assuming he's lying. He's been honest and said he knows. He knew about the relationship between Madelson and Epstein in the vetting process. That is the issue here. I'm not accusing him of lying about anything. He's been very open. I'm actually saying that the evidence we have at this point in time is damning enough. Boris Johnson was forced to resign over matters, particularly the current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, tried to get Boris to resign over the birthday cake scandal in Downing Street. This is worse. This is a man whose judgment has looked at Peter Mandelson, who's best friends or friendly with a convicted, prolific international pedophile, and gone, I think you'll be all right in this job.
Well, that's exactly it. The best friends stuff came out much later on, and it was after the appointment. If Starmer had known that, I'm sure he wouldn't have appointed him. It seemed to him, and it's what he said today, that Mandelson gave a very light account of how well he knew
on the contrary, I think, look, let's look beyond Westminster itself. The British metropolitan liberal elite, they're all, including the metropolitan elite press, were lauding Mandelson's appointment in Washington. That sort of tells you the story of what sort of network has been operating within the SW1 bubble. And that's what this is about. The whole place is rotten. And I think it's about time that we make goodness fashionable again.
Yeah, indeed. And Sebastian, final remarks from you. There's now, Angela Rayner yesterday in the House of Commons basically twisting the knife into the back of the Prime Minister around this amendment that was, dubbed by Kemi Badenoch as a whitewash amendment to stop the public and MPs from learning the full truth. Labour backbenchers, it's gone so far that backbenchers have basically warned the Prime Minister not to go ahead with it because they will block it, which would inevitably lead to a no-confidence vote. You still think, after all of that the Prime Minister is going to be able to govern?
Well, we know that backbenchers within the Labour Party are a powerful bloc. There are a lot of them. We saw what happened with welfare, and that's just a reality of this government. And Starmer got through that last year. That was, what was that, about 9 months ago now? And
with U-turn after U-turn.
Well, look, we can get into whether you think they're really U-turns.
Of course they are.
The point is, he has managed to get through that so far. Let's see what comes out of that disclosure. Let's see how damning that is, and then we'll be able to make an accurate assessment of Starmer's future prospects.
This is now a zombie government, and it's about time we have a general election and get rid of
this. And what would that solve? Because we've done that time and time again.
Yes.
And that's the reason we've had Prime Minister after Prime Minister serving for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And where has that got us? Absolutely nowhere. It's in the national interest that we allow one Prime Minister to serve their term and to enact an agenda.
Why do you think it would benefit us?
Well, look, it's got us to an anti-national government. This is an anti-national Prime Minister.
What does that mean?
What that means is that he's not serving in British national interest.
Why?
Do you really think it was in British national interest to send Mandelson to Washington, D.C. to deal with Trump, our most closest ally? I don't think that was in the national interest. And it's played out not in the national interest.
Listen, this is not going to go away, this story. There are many of them, I've said this before, but I don't think this one's going to go away. Of course, we're going to still wait. We don't know when the disclosure of these files is going to happen. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But for the moment,